Welcome to The Savvy Investor, where it's our job to help you be secure in any economy. You've managed to accumulate some wealth over the years, and now it's time to pass it along to your heirs. Are they ready for it? Will they be good stewards with the wealth you leave behind? Today on The Savvy Investor, legacy planning and how to protect your heirs.
Welcome to The Savvy Investor. Each week, The Savvy Investor helps viewers just like you create and grow wealth, protect and preserve it, and distribute it in the most tax-efficient manner while alive and after you passed. Our goal is to make you a better informed investor that hopefully leads to better results, but certainly less risk along the way. You can have financial security in any economy. Today is the day you can take control of your financial future and eliminate worry about your retirement forever. And now, The Savvy Investor with your host, Michael Kinnett.
Legacy planning is perhaps the thing we postponed to the last possible moment. I was very fortunate to be able to contribute to a book written by Steve Forbes called Successonomics, and actually spoke with him at a conference in New York City called Success in the New Economy back in June of 2013. Now, I only bring this up because my contribution to his book was all about legacy planning. For me, legacy planning is very near and dear to my heart, and for those of you who've read my book, you know I come from very meager beginnings. My wife and I have worked hard to accumulate an estate that we can leave to our kids, and our biggest concern is that as much as we've tried to teach them the value of hard work and money, they just don't appreciate what it takes to get here. As I've talked to viewers and clients over the years, I think this is a common concern. I've done a good job accumulating some wealth and assets, and my spouse and I worked hard and sacrificed to get to this level in life, and when we both pass away, I'm worried my kids will actually blow all the money that we've worked so hard to accumulate. Now, today on The Savvy Investor, we're going to talk to you about those steps you should take to protect your hard-earned wealth and your heirs. But first, let's take a look at some news. Our first piece of news comes from U.S. News titled, Baby Boomers to Inherit Up to $11.6 Trillion. Baby boomers have even more reasons, 11.6 trillion of them, to thank the greatest generation. According to a new study, the boomer generation, and those are people born from 46 to 64, they're going to inherit that many dollars, and it's largely from their parents. Now, the numbers are broken down into three categories according to a study commissioned by MetLife and conducted by the Center for Retirement Research over at Boston College. Already, boomers have received $2.4 trillion in inheritance, and they stand to get another $6 trillion. In addition, wealth transfers from living donors have already totaled about $1 trillion and could total another $2.2 trillion. Now, on the downside, the study said the economic downturn eventually could reduce these numbers by up to $800 billion. Our second piece comes from the Wall Street Journal, and it's called Lost Inheritance. Studies show Americans blow through family fortunes at a remarkable rate. With trillions being passed on, can today's baby boomers break this vicious cycle? If the past is any prelude, inheritors, especially those who are new to the family windfall phenomenon, they face a very unpleasant reality. They're likely to blow it. Although it's not widely discussed, financial advisors say that new riches prove particularly hard to hold on to and even harder to patiently nurture and grow. Indeed, research shows that family money rarely survives the transfer for long, with 70% gone by the end of the first generation, and by the end of the second, 90% gone. Our third piece comes from MSN Money, and it's titled, What to Do with a Big Inheritance. Receiving an inheritance, especially an unexpected one, might leave you feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the options. Now, ideally, the money should bring you closer to financial independence, but many heirs just don't know how to handle a windfall and end up no better off than they were before. The first priority is to develop a strategy. Most people run through an inheritance in 2 years or less, and the first mistake they make is just basically to go out and blow the money on stuff for themselves. So if you're among the fortunate ones, those who have been able to save and plan on leaving something for the kids, and remember, a legacy is all relevant. It can be $25,000 or $25 million, and quite frankly, anything in between. So no matter what the dollar amount is, you've worked hard, you scraped and sacrificed to accumulate it. Make sure it goes to good work when you leave it to the next generation. Now, today on the show, we're going to take a look at the steps you should be making in leaving a legacy to your heirs. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back.
If you're in retirement or retiring in the next 3 to 5 years, you must read Michael Kinnett's best-selling book, Surviving the Perfect Storm. Best-selling author and National Quill Award winner, Michael Kinnett's Surviving the Perfect Storm is a must-read to prepare for your golden years. This amazing book can be yours absolutely free, but you must call 800-787-SAVVY. Supplies are limited, so be one of the first 25 callers to receive your free limited edition autographed copy of Surviving the Perfect Storm. Call 800-787-SAVVY.
Welcome back to The Savvy Investor. Today we're discussing legacy planning and how to create and protect the legacy you leave for your heirs. Now think about this for just a minute. First and foremost, death and money make kids stupid. I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and with very rare exception, mom and dad always tell me their kids are going to be different when the time comes to have a conversation with the kids. But I'm here to tell you, money and death make them stupid. So, while we would like to think the kids are going to cooperate and play nicely, we need to take certain steps to make sure that the money that we've worked so hard to accumulate isn't wasted away in just 18 months. We want our kids to be good stewards of our money, just like we were. To help us through this process, we are joined by Bernie Unger. Bernie, welcome to The Savvy Investor.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be here.
So, when we're talking about legacy planning, it means different things to different people. And, it's not just about how much money you leave for somebody. It's not necessarily I'm leaving a big old nest egg, but it's really about each person, their desire to leave something behind. So let's talk a little bit about some of the basics. I've seen news articles and read reports. There's something like $16 trillion being transferred from the boomers generation to the next generation. That's a lot of money. So let's talk a little bit about the whole concept of legacy planning.
Yeah, Mike, I think to start the conversation, I'd like to tell you about when Christopher Columbus returned from his voyage to the New World. And he comes home, and there is a great dinner party being held in his honor. And at this dinner party, one gentleman stands up and challenges Christopher Columbus and says to him, what you accomplished really wasn't all that special. In fact, anyone could have done it. And Christopher Columbus thought for a moment, and since it was a dinner party, he looked around and he noticed that everybody had a hard-boiled egg. So he asked this gentleman to pick up that hard-boiled egg and stand it up on end. Now, of course, the man tried, and he couldn't get it to stand. And as you might expect, everybody in the audience decided to give it a try as well. And nobody could get the egg to stand. Finally, Christopher Columbus picked up his egg, and he tapped it just a little bit on the edge of the table to break the shell. And he stood it there for everyone to see. So, of course, everybody hooted and hollered, and they're screaming, well, anyone could have done it that way. And Christopher Columbus says, that's exactly the point. Any one of you could have done it that way, but none of you have.
I love that story.
And the moral is that great things can happen when we simply change our way of thinking.
Right.
And right now, we need people to change their way of thinking when it comes to legacy planning.
Well, so let's talk about the basics of legacy planning. There's some tools that are involved. I mean, wills and powers of attorney and all that type of stuff that come into play. But really, the whole idea of legacy planning is leaving a legacy. But what does that mean to people? I mean, is it the whole idea that I have to leave them $1 million? What exactly is leaving a legacy? What does that mean?
Mike, it's not necessarily about money, and that's the first misperception that people have. People think that, well, I don't have $5 million, I don't need to leave a legacy. But that's not it at all. It's leaving something special behind. What do you want to be remembered for? What values do you want to leave? What principles? And there are so many easy ideas that people can take advantage of that it doesn't cost anything whatsoever. I'll give you an example. For my grandchildren, each year as it gets close to their birthday, I sit down and I write a little letter. And I tell them what's happened in their lives during the past year. And I'll take a couple photographs and I'll take that letter and stick it in an envelope. And someday when I'm gone, that whole stack of letters, when it winds up in their hands, I think they're going to appreciate it.
Well, it's a story, and it's a story of what's happened, right? And that's, I have a great client, and it's his grandfather 5 times, whatever great bad words. Turns out he was a bugler in George Washington's army. And so generation after generation after generation, they have this bugle that's been passed down, and it's got, like you said, it's got letters and stories about the origins of it. And for them, that is the family legacy. That is the most important thing. So it's not just about a dollar amount. So legacy planning is more than just, am I going to leave something? It really is, it's unique to the person. So you've just said everybody needs to plan for whatever the legacy it is they want to leave, be it monetary or otherwise. Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's true, and money does come into play. And the fact of the matter is that anybody that has saved a nest egg during their lifetime. My dad was a construction worker. He worked as a laborer his whole life, raised 4 children, yet he still put together a nest egg. That nest egg, that's important to him to pass on. It's important to his memory, it's important to the family, and he has taken steps to make sure that that passes. But it's not just the money again, it's the values and it's the principles. And those are the things that we want to make sure go from generation to generation.
Now, you bring up an important point, and I'm very fortunate I got to write a book with Steve Forbes. I'm actually doing a presentation with him this summer. And in the book, I'm talking about the whole idea of, obviously Steve Forbes and his wealth is in a different stratosphere than most of us. But we're talking about the fact that when kids inherit money, sometimes, I talk about death and money make kids stupid. So there are some things that we need to think about as we're leaving money to our children, because it can have catastrophic consequences.
Yeah, and the vast majority of parents all want to believe that their children will behave that way.
Right.
They all want to believe it. But then what happens is the parents will pass away, the children will inherit the money, and it's a red, shiny sports car, maybe fix the kitchen, maybe go on vacation, and it's gone.
18 to 24 months.
18 to 24 months on average. But every parent wants to believe, not my kid.
Right.
They are smarter than that. They will make it last. But there's that red, shiny sports car in the driveway before you know it.
Right, and because, like everything, this time it's different. This time it's different. And we see that in all aspects of the economy, and certainly legacy planning is no different than that.
But Mike, it's also the parents' fault, because there are tools available to the parents to make sure that these things don't happen. There's tools to the parents that the parents can utilize so that half the estate isn't lost to taxes. And, when the children receive an inheritance and they think it's the IRS lottery, well, the IRS is going to take their share first.
Right.
And then there's that red, shiny sports car. But if the parents had taken proper steps, used the tools that are available to them, none of this would have happened.
There's a great story from Ed Slott. He's a CPA and an author, and there's a great story that he tells about the beneficiary that received an IRA that was the sole asset that his father left him. 115% was the tax bill when it was all said and done.
Wow.
And it actually went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said you can't tax more than 100%, which is great for the rest of us
Sure.
to know that they can't take more than 100% of our legacy. Now, legacy planning is perhaps one of the greatest gifts we can give for future generations. As Bernie suggested, there's a lot of stuff in there. It allows us to educate our children and our grandkids and our grandkids' grandkids. We can endow generations and charities. We really need to understand what needs to be done in order to accomplish the legacy. It has a tremendous impact on other people's lives. Now, when we come back, we're going to talk about how to create that legacy, the tools you need to know, how to make a difference for future generations. We're also going to take a look at viewer mail. You're watching The Savvy Investor with Mike Kinnett, and we'll be right back.
Join the host of the nationally syndicated TV series, The Savvy Investor, and best-selling author Michael Kinnett for this very important, life-changing workshop. Michael and his team of advisors from across the country have been helping families create and live the retirement they envision by carefully crafting a retirement income plan that can withstand any financial crisis. Michael will give you the tools you need to make sound investment choices and help you prepare for your golden years. At this workshop, you will learn more than just where to invest your money. Michael will also share tax strategies that can save you and your family thousands in tax dollars. You will learn important estate planning techniques that can help you avoid the high cost of a nursing home, as well as reduce or completely eliminate any estate tax. Now, you can join him in person for these very informative workshops. They could be the answer to creating a safe and secure retirement you deserve. Call 800-787-SAVVY to see if you qualify to attend one of these workshops with best-selling author Michael Kinnett, host of The Savvy Investor.
Welcome back. Today we're discussing legacy and legacy planning. And many of you have the opportunity to make a significant difference in the future, either through a legacy to your children and grandchildren and generations to come, or the legacy to the community in which you live. You can make a significant difference in somebody's life, and we're going to talk about the specific steps you can take to make such a difference. Now, I recently had a client who passed away, and one of his hobbies was taking pictures of trains and covered bridges. Now, when he died, he literally had thousands of pictures documenting the demise of those historical bridges. He'd been photographing them for since the early 30s, and it was quite a remarkable story with the pictures that he told. Now, when he passed, he left them to a historical society, and I can't tell you how excited they were to receive such an incredible gift. So you see, a legacy doesn't have to be just a gift of money. It really is a gift that will have an impact for future generations. Now, before we go there, I want to take a quick look at viewer mail. From Karen in Philadelphia, she wants to know what is the difference between a TOD account and a POD account. Mark, what's the difference?
Kara, good question. There actually is no difference. The different states use different titles. TOD is transfer on death. POD would be pay on death.
From Deanna in Pikesville, she writes this and says that her mother's just passed away and left her an IRA. She wants to know whether she can roll that IRA into her own personal IRA. Can she do this, Mark?
Deanna, you can't roll the IRA into your own personal IRA. However, you have three choices as to how you can distribute those assets. Number one, you can take it in a lump sum and pay all the taxes. Secondly, you can spread the distribution over a 5-year period, which will help you a little bit to offset the negative tax effect. Or, and this is the one that maybe you should really look at, is you can stretch that IRA over the rest of your life. You'll be forced to take a minimum required distribution, but the good news is it'll be based on your age, not your mom's.
Thanks, Mark, for all the great advice and answers. We're going to take a quick break now. When we come back, we'll resume our interview.
Remember when life was simpler? When things didn't move quite so fast and the world didn't seem so complex? Remember that? We do. And as the world around us has continued to speed up, becoming more complicated, more and more uncertain, we have managed to keep things simple, providing sound, easy-to-understand financial advice and proven solutions for the road ahead. From investments and insurance to tax reduction strategies, estate planning solutions, and guaranteed retirement income you cannot outlive, we're your single point of contact, a single call, a voice you recognize well, and a partner who will be by your side for the entire journey. We can't stop the world around us, but we can help ensure you're prepared for what's to come. For a special free guide entitled 10 Things to Know About Retirement Income, simply contact us today.
Welcome back. What do you think?
It was interesting. Great questions, great answers.
So, one of the things we try to do here each and every week is make the show informative. And we want you to make smart money decisions. We only scratch the surface here, and you deserve more. Our experts appear all over the country helping you make smart money choices. And legacy planning is one of the focal points of each and every conversation they have. Sit down and talk with them, but take notes on today's show so you can make sure you have the right legacy planning choices for you and your family. Now let's delve further into this. I want to talk a little bit more about the whole legacy planning. And for people, for some people, what's left over is fine. And for some people, I want to leave a number. So let's talk about the differences between those two people and the approach they take.
Well, I think the first thing, Mike, that people need to do is really determine the end game. And by determining the end game, I mean they need to decide how long they plan to live. And once they realize how long they're going to live or make that determination, plan longer.
Right.
Let's plan longer than what we expect. But then once we do that, now we can create a goal, because now we can decide how much we want to leave behind. How much of our nest egg should be left? Should it be the same amount that we currently have in real terms, or could it be more than what we currently have? Could it be less? Could it be nothing?
Right. And one of the things we talk about with clients all the time is that plan to 95. Because if you plan to 95 and you live only to 80, you're in great shape, or only 83, everything works out well. But if you plan to 83 and you live to 95, it will have a significant impact. So your point of making sure you have a plan to start with and that you've thought this out and had a conversation is very important. So let's talk about what are the tools people can use. What can people do for people that want to leave more than what they started with, or want to make sure there's a number? Because some people, it is a number game. What are their options? What do they need to do? I mean, people have Roth IRAs, they have IRAs, there's life insurance, there's trust. Let's talk about those things.
Well, the first thing they need to understand is what is their distribution plan? Because when they have all these tools available to them, whether they're IRAs or Roth IRAs or non-qualified accounts, there is a pecking order when it comes to distribution. And certain things are better to be left behind. I would rather leave my children or grandchildren a Roth IRA than a traditional IRA.
Because you're talking about the tax
I'm
implications.
talking about the taxes.
Right,
And
right.
it was just, I'd rather, instead of losing 50% taxation, I'd rather give it to them tax-free.
Because you have a silent partner, in at least the traditional IRA, you have a silent partner with the IRS.
Absolutely.
Right, right.
And the whole idea is to get it to them as effectively as possible without them being able to buy that red shiny sports car. So that's when we talk about the stretch IRA.
Right.
And the stretch IRA is simply where they are going to receive income based upon their life expectancy from that same IRA. If you're taking, like many Americans are, they only take minimum distributions from their IRA and nothing more.
The money they're forced to take.
Absolutely.
Right.
So why wouldn't that be good enough for their children as well? Let the children take the minimum amount instead of getting everything all at once. And that's how you stretch out an IRA so that it not only can go to the children, but it could last another generation or two beyond that. And now you're helping your child, you're helping your grandchild, and the legacy continues to live.
And provides some tax planning opportunities by stretching it out. So they're not taking it all at once and paying tax on all at
The
once.
tax savings is phenomenal.
But now you can also attach strings to it using trusts, right? I mean, for if you want to leave money through non-qualified accounts, you have a brokerage account or a bank account, you're leaving money there. You can use a trust to attach those same type of
You
strings.
can use a trust, and you can pretty much design a trust to do anything. And there's different types of trusts. For example, there's a charitable remainder trust where we can get some money to a charity, but yet the income is still provided to your family or to your loved ones. We can use a testamentary trust that takes effect upon your death.
Right.
And I've seen people do all sorts of things in those testamentary trusts. That they're wonderful tools. When you mention the non-qualified accounts, I want people to understand a little something about a designation called a POD or a TOD, a payable on death or a taxable, or excuse,
Transfer on that.
transfer on
Right,
death.
right.
I'm sorry. The amount of money that they can save their beneficiaries is staggering, because you're looking at a 4% legal fee to settle probate, plus the court costs. So think if you've got $50,000 in a bank CD, and you pass that through your will, through probate, instead of using a simple, easy-to-apply POD designation, you could end up costing your beneficiary a couple $1,000s unnecessarily.
Yeah, I think AARP says somewhere between 4% and 6% for probate fees, and I think you can get a little bit cheaper, but still, your point is valid. And one of the things that we always encourage people to avoid doing, we hear it all the time, I put my kids' names on it as joint owners. That's just horrific.
Horrific.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
the worst thing you can
So
do.
that's a big no-no. But let's talk a little bit about the idea of using life insurance, because I love trusts. I love the charitable remainder trust concept. I'm a big believer in taking that minimum required distribution that most retirees are significant. They don't even want the money and they're forced to take
Right.
it. Using that to fund the charitable remainder trust, so they get that tax write-off, and then they use the distributions from the charitable remainder trust to buy life insurance.
And the biggest benefit of that is when the beneficiary receives that life insurance, it's completely tax-free.
And if you do it correctly, it's not only income tax-free, but you can have it estate tax-free as well.
Absolutely.
Now, the thing I like to point out to people is that the difference between having money in a brokerage account, or not so much a bank account, but a brokerage account, an investment account, is that when you pass away, what's the number going to be? Because if it's in an account that goes up and down, I don't know what that outcome is going to be. So if they want to have a sum specific, a number that's going to go to their heirs, is there a better option than life insurance?
Well, there's the life insurance, but there's also guaranteed death benefits associated with certain types of products that people need to be aware of, because if that's what they're looking for to protect their beneficiaries as well as provide growth and or income during their lifetimes, there's a variable annuity that would probably fit the right size.
Right, so annuities, if you wanted the upside of the stock market and take some of the risk of what the beneficiaries are going to receive. The death benefit obviously doesn't do me any good while I'm alive, but there are some options for there as well as an investment vehicle.
There's benefits for the person who owns the account, that is living, that is drawing income, that is seeking growth, and there's also the benefits for the beneficiaries themselves.
But you have to read it carefully because there are some nuances and some rules involved with it.
Absolutely, and a lot of the things that we're talking about today they're important. You need to talk to an advisor. This is not something you run out and do on your own.
Right.
And there's a real quick story about a guy that he's walking down the street and he falls into a hole. It's too wide, too deep to get out of. A priest walks by and the man yells out, "Help me, help me." The priest writes down a prayer and drops it into the hole. Doesn't do any help. A doctor goes by and the man says, "Help me, help me." The doctor writes a prescription, drops it into the hole. Well, that didn't help. The guy's friend walks by. The friend jumps into the hole. The guy says to his friend, "What, are you crazy? Why did you do this?" The friend says, "Well, I've been here before and I know the way out." And that's what you need to do when you're planning your legacy, when you're planning your estate, is work with somebody who's been there before, that they know the way out. And that's why you need to call an advisor that is specializing and has real good knowledge in the legacy planning arena.
Great information. I mean, spot on for today's show. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to talk about the takeaways that Bernie gave us today. You're watching The Savvy Investor, and we'll be right back.
Like any tool, there's the right tool for the right job and a wrong tool for the wrong job. We've just scratched the surface here, and you'll want to know more about how today's conversation might or might not fit your needs. Ask about fees, surrender charges, market risk, interest rate risks, how the guarantees work, liquidity, and much more. Remember, the right tool for the right job.
Today we were joined by Bernie Unger. Now he's the owner of Unger Financial Network, and he explained to us that legacy planning is an important part of estate planning, and if done correctly, can have a significant impact on the lives of future generations. Today Bernie provided us with several important pieces of advice, and the first thing he says is that legacy planning really does come from the heart. And think about my client. His legacy were those thousands and thousands of pictures, so it's not just about the money. Now, the second thing he tells us is that kids really are stupid. Death and money make them stupid. So while you may think your kids are different, you should make plans and take the steps necessary to protect them from the possibility that they may be stupid anyways. And the third thing he says is that it's never too early to start planning. And really what Bernie is telling us is that, look, if you want to leave a legacy for your kids, you need to know what to do and take the proper steps today. I want to thank Bernie for joining us and providing us with these important steps to legacy planning. If you'd like our free guide to the 7 steps of legacy planning, call the number you see on the screen. It's a step-by-step guide to help you make smart choices about your money. Give us a call and we'll send out our guide to you at no cost. We'll see you, the Savvy Investor, next week.